Welcome to Mrs. True Crime. Today's video is an in-depth look into the Brown family murders. It's a tale of lies and brutality. If you're triggered by anything dealing with death and or harm to children, feel free to click off this video. Perhaps check out a monkey video for some lighthearted content. If not, I'm Nicole. Let's get started. Carolyn Denise Walker Brown was a petite 27-year-old African-American woman standing 5'6" with brown eyes hidden behind glasses, a gap in between her front teeth, and black hair. She was a, quote, very caring, dedicated, unquote, third-grade teacher at Chester A. Moore Elementary, a public school in Fort Pierce, Florida. Her affection for children expanded into her Girl Scout leader duties and even more as a 4-H, which, according to 4h.org, is a hands-on program for children in different educational areas, such as health and science, with an adult mentor and a proactive leadership role. Her desire to teach and guide children was a trait her and her husband, James Michael Brown, shared throughout their 10-year marriage. James, who has a master's degree in child guidance, is described by his sister as level-headed, hardworking, and a lover of his family. Brown was a teacher turned counselor at the Florida School for Boys in Okeechobee, also known as the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys. The school was constructed in 1900 in Mariana, with a second campus opening in 1955 in Okeechobee. At the time, it was the largest juvenile reform school in America, but it was also the subject of abuse, rape, torture, and murder investigations. The school was officially shut down June 30th, 2011. Brown, however, left the school prior to widespread outrage of the campus. He transferred to the public school system and became a 7th grade teacher at Lincoln Park Middle School in Fort Pierce, but it was short-lived. 3 years after landing the job, Brown was convicted of attempted child abuse in 1983 for allegedly hitting his 9-year-old daughter Sheketah with a leather strap he kept on the bedroom door for purchasing a pencil with her lunch money without Brown's permission. Family and friends defended Brown, insisting he was just disciplining his daughter and that Sheketah, quote, didn't have a mark on her, unquote. Yet teachers and counselors would disagree. There were bruises on her arm from fighting Brown back and red welts and cuts on her back from the beating. Brown pled no contest and was given 3 years probation in order to take 250 hours with Parents Anonymous, a self-help group for parents or those in a parental role looking for guidance and support to better strengthen their families. With this charge on his record, Brown lost his teaching position and teaching license. If he wanted to teach again, he would have to pass the teaching exam. Determined, Brown landed a 4-H recruiter job for the University of Florida. The job was renewable every 6 months, but after a year, funding was cut and his position was terminated. Brown was officially unemployed, which put a damper on the routine it seemed him and his wife fell into. While working, Brown often left his home early and stayed late, and the same was noted about Carolyn. She'd pick up their 3 children from school and stay at church for as long as she could. Besides the comment of friction between Carolyn and Brown's first wife and Sheketah's mother, Gloria Lockett, there wasn't a reason I could find as to why the two of them wanted to stay apart. Though, I do wonder if the kids thought anything of it. The oldest and only girl was Sheketah Michelle Brown, born December 20th, 1974. Like Carolyn, she had brown eyes hidden behind glasses with black hair usually in pigtails. She was a small thing at 4'6" and 65 pounds. Her little brother Barry Michael Brown was 4 years younger, born December 29th, 1978, and a foot shorter at 3'6" and 55 pounds, while the youngest of them all, Brandon Mitchell Brown, was 2 years old, born December 19th, 1983, and only 2 feet tall. Both boys had black hair and brown eyes. There are no reports on how vibrant or shy or silly these children were, at least none that I could find. But it's important that we remember them and what they may have thought or felt in these next events. In early August 1985, Rosa Walker phoned police that her daughter Carolyn was missing. She said that she hadn't seen or heard from her daughter or her family since July 16th. Walker phones her daughter every week, and it wasn't like Carolyn to not call. The Browns were supposed to be in Tallahassee with Walker for a family reunion on August 25th. Close to 300 people were in attendance, but the family of 5 were missing. The last thing Carolyn said to her mother was that she would be home before school started, but the new school year began and there were no signs of the family. Police began their initial search August 10th. The Matas' home was unlocked with the windows open. Officers called out, but no one answered. The house was deserted. Telephone records showed no one used the phone for over a month. The dining room table showed an uneaten meal. The kitchen housed a cold pan of soup on the stove, and clothes were untouched. The family's pet hamster was found dead of starvation. Yet the master bedroom had been freshly painted. Further inspection revealed bloodstains underneath the paint. The blood splatter was also located in the hallway and master bathroom. In the garage was Carolyn's eyeglasses and purse, with every piece of her ID and credit cards slashed. Both of the family's vehicles were missing, but were located sometime before the initial search. The blue 4-door 1981 Buick Skylark was recovered in a shopping center in Savannah, Georgia. The keys were still in the ignition, the license plate was gone, and the lock on the trunk was punched out. In the trunk was a t-shirt, a tennis racket, and a wallet without ID, but $40 tucked inside. The second car was discovered at a Port St. Lucie auto repair shop. While the clues left behind painted a vague picture, there were still details the police couldn't understand. And then a phone rang. While reports differ on the exact person on the other end of the call, the thing most certain was that James Brown made a phone call in between his family's disappearance and Rosa Walker's call to the police. The call was brief, in which James informed the person on the other end, either his sister or a close friend, that they can have everything in his house, as he had no plans to return. Some reports say that Brown said he landed an overseas job and was leaving with his sons. In any case, when the unknown telephone person asked where Brown's family was, he simply said, quote, "out there," unquote. Investigators grew worried surrounding Brown's state of mind during the call, especially after discovering a receipt for a pistol Brown purchased in June. Weeks passed and police were no closer to finding Brown or solving the mystery of the family's whereabouts. But somewhere in Savannah, Georgia, a man named Demetrius Jones was about to crack the case wide open. Demetrius Jones checked himself into a local hospital bleeding from his head. Witnesses would attest that Jones said he was robbed and shot. His stay in the hospital, however, proved unpleasant when officials discovered his real name was James Michael Brown. Brown confessed to murdering his family in Florida and Georgia and trying to commit suicide afterward. He drove to Savannah to take his life, grazing himself behind the ear with a .22 caliber pistol. He pulled the trigger again, but the gun was empty. Whether this is the purchased weapon or if it was the same used in the murders, I can't say. When he appeared bleeding to the public, he lied and said he was attacked and robbed. Though he later recanted his confession, a motive given to police for the slayings was Brown's fear that he gave his family syphilis. Michael Chavone, a court-appointed attorney, said, quote, "That's not a motive for a mass murderer. That's a motive for a person with mental problems," unquote. Brown was jailed in Savannah for filing a false report and obstruction of justice for 7 months. While he sat in jail, police in Florida were building their case, but it was flimsy without the bodies. While Assistant Public Defender Robert Farrison agreed that the case was weak, Sheriff Captain Robert Provost assured the public that murder charges had been filed in the disappearance of Carolyn and Brandon because of evidence discovered. What that evidence is, I can't say. Unfortunately, Brown wasn't charged for the murders or disappearances of Sheketah and Barry because their deaths occurred in Georgia. Michael tried to fight efforts to extradite Brown to Florida for trial since the bodies hadn't been found, but Judge Eugene Gadsden ruled that the extradition was valid. Brown arrived in April 1986 to the St. Lucie County Jail and was held without bond. From here, Brown was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia by several court-appointed psychologists, stating that he heard voices and saw visions. Brown claimed it was the voices that made him kill his family. He pled innocent by reason of insanity and was acquitted for the murder and disappearances of his wife and youngest son, and was committed indefinitely to Florida State Mental Hospital in Chattahoochee out of fear he was a danger to himself or others. But mental illness runs in his family. In fact, the state mental hospital is the same one where his father, Carlton Brown Sr., was held for 8 years for attacking his wife with a butcher knife. She escaped by jumping out a window. He too heard voices, according to Brown. Thomas Brown, one of James's brothers, killed his wife by shooting her after seeing her in a car with another man. Thomas spent 4 years in prison for the murder. Brown's indefinite term at the hospital came to a close 10 years later, and he was moved to a halfway house in 1996, and after 18 months there, he was released in 1997. Doctors claimed he was no longer dangerous and that his schizophrenia was in remission. In 2002, he lived in Tallahassee with one of his brothers, working a few days a week at his funeral home as a receptionist. Every month, he visited a social worker for a 100-milligram shot of Haldol, a mood disorder drug. If he failed to show up, he would be arrested. He also was not allowed to own or operate a gun or drink alcohol. But in 2005, he was imprisoned again for threatening to kill a bank clerk during a robbery. As of 2011, he is in a Miami-Dade prison. So then, what really happened to the Brown family? The only word we have to go on is that of James, and he admitted to changing details so that bones wouldn't be found in Georgia. Where the bodies are located, only James truly knows. But according to him, the story goes as follows. On the morning of July 14, 1985, at 1955 Southeast Millbrook Terrace, after having intercourse with his wife, James shot Carolyn in the back of her ear with a .22 automatic pistol while she laid in their master bedroom. Beside her was Brandon, sleeping soundly until he was smothered with a pillow. James then ventured to a department store where he purchased a hacksaw to cut Carolyn's body. He cut her into 8 pieces, leaving only her torso. It's unclear if he placed all of Carolyn's remains inside a garbage bag or not, but he states he placed her and Brandon into garbage bags and drove them into town, putting them into a dumpster behind a grocery store. Like I've mentioned, James admitted to changing details in his story. Here, different articles claim that James dumped Brandon's body at a shopping center, while Carolyn's was placed near Shoemaker Buick dealership in West Palm Beach. It's not until James's 40-page letter to Oprah that it's revealed he chopped up Carolyn's body, if this part is factual. As for Barry and Sheketah, they remained in the home with their father for 2 days. Then they all got into the car and left. James said he had the pistol in his pocket, unaware of where they'd end up. He says they ended up in Jacksonville, Florida, and that the following day, while in the car, he shot his son and daughter in the back of the head, then placed them in a dumpster behind an office. The issue with this is, once again, James's need to change and alter facts. In his original confession, James said he shot Sheketah and Barry in the woods along I-95 near Burnswick, Georgia, leaving the bodies in the open space. Yet another article, in which James did an interview for, quotes James saying he shot Barry in the back and Sheketah in the face, and then disposed of their bodies along the highway. Brown's family don't believe that he murdered his family, and investigators have never successfully located any of the bodies. Carolyn, Sheketah, Brandon, and Barry Brown were all murdered in 1985 for reasons we may never know nor understand. Their last moments and whereabouts are inside the mind of an unwell man who lied so much about the details that it's possible even he began to believe them. Investigators have made it clear that if the bodies of Sheketah and or Barry are found, Brown can be charged with their murder. I hope one day that this case can have a successful end, and that the relatives of Carolyn and the children can have some much needed peace. I'm Mrs. True Crime, and remember to be kind, be loud, be aware. Hey, want to see these videos a day early? Check out my Patreon page for how, and maybe look over a few other perks while you're there. In the meantime, for more information about the Brown family murders, why not check out some of these awesome links. And if you like what you saw and heard today, why not drop a like and a comment. Maybe subscribe while you're here. I make new videos every Wednesday, and you don't want to miss what's in store.